My name's Stephen. I'm the CEO of Pimento and founder. Today we're going to be talking about a number of things. In fact, first of all, say obviously today's call will be recorded, as you just noted, so that people to make the call can actually watch it on our catch-up channel. As ever, I want to make this as interactive as possible, so we're going to go through 3 presentations today, rather unusually. We're going to be covering 3 different topics. In a way, they're kind of related to each other. Our first speaker will be Annabel Dunstan. Many of you know Annabel from Question Retain. She's going to give us a summary of the latest insights from the Alliance Independent Agency Survey. It's a bit of a preview, actually. It's a sneak preview. We're getting kind of the update ahead of actually the Independent Alliance Agency Network tomorrow, which will be shared with them. So please keep this to yourself for 24 hours. It's embargoed, okay? So this is up-to-minute stuff. Many of you, I think, know Annabel already. In brief, she's a former agency CEO, TV presenter, lumberjack, and has also more recently been in the world of PR and now a research and insight specialist. And her focus is on providing practical advice on the employee, client, and/or experience to her audiences. So works very closely with agencies, very closely with clients in managing the relationship between the two. We then have Christine MacKay, who is the founder of newly award-winning Salamandra, which she founded in 2014. Salamandra specialises in animation for business and visual problem solving. The team works across a very broad range of different spheres and different skills, with illustrations from children's books through to corporate explainers, to training videos, and immersive, augmented, and virtual presentations. Really interesting insights, and she's also just written a book on it, so she'll tell us a little bit about that. And then last but by no means least, we're going to hear again from Oliver Wright from Savanta. We'll be sharing his quarterly updates on consumer and business sentiment. Ollie, for those that don't know, leads the public division at Savanta, and he has overall responsibility for all client research in central and local government, education, charities, and public health. He's also on the company's political polling, and he's a member of the Savanta executive leadership team. So 3 outstanding presenters. We've got a feast of insights and entertainment for you today. So I'm going to hand over now to our first speaker, Annabel.
Thanks, Stephen. Can you hear me, first of all? We'll check. Great. And you can see my presentation. Check. Great, thanks everybody. I have 10 minutes. I'll try and take 9.5. I like to finish on time. We ask agencies 9 questions every quarter. It's called the People Pulse. We run it in conjunction with the Alliance of Independent Agencies. These findings are embargoed until tomorrow, but you have advanced sight of them. So just to give you a quick run through, we've been running this for 5 quarters. We're just showing you this year's quarters, Q1 right through to Q4 2021. And you can see happily the number of responses across the top has on the whole gone up and up and up. A bit of a dip in August. I think everyone chose to put their feet up and sit on a deck chair. But happily we're at 430 something, hiding behind the photographs, 439 responses, and that's across 66 agencies. So phenomenal, this is building, really excited about this. And it really is gold dust, not only to get the full picture for you guys to look at, but if you're an agency that sends in 6 responses, you get your own tailored report. So please, please, please do look out for the next quarter. Do send the link out to your agency, because then you can get your own intel and compare it to our aggregates that we're sharing today. Number of agencies that did just that has gone up to 25. So gold dust, there's absolute gold dust. Right, first slide. We're looking at 9 different areas. So we're looking at pride, respect, trust, diversity and inclusion, learning and development, attitudes about returning to work, leadership and communication, sustainability, and mental health. So 9 areas. You can read the charts for yourselves. You can see it's holding steady around 2/3 feeling proud to work at their agency. I think the gold dust is always in the comments, and people have been very vocal. I think something about working from home, people feel even more able to get things off their chest. So we've just put in a couple on the right hand side there. And this is, as an agency leader, this is what you want your staff to be saying about you. So the green comments, our agency is full of talented individuals who work together as a team. Do your staff say that at the moment? That's the gold standard to be working towards. And then perhaps in the amber, sitting there 4% this quarter, saying, I'm increasingly aware of the disconnect between what we say and what we do. So any of your staff saying that, does that resonate? And if you don't know, then this is an opportunity to find out by getting them to fill in this pulse check. So respect, just ringing the changes, how we present the data here. Q4, we've got it at 71% saying people feel encouraged to voice their opinions and ideas. Operating a no fear culture, clearly a way to get the best out of your people. Happy team, happy client is always my mantra. And again, we've got somebody in the amber there saying only the opinions of a few are really valued and the rest are ignored. So an opportunity to perhaps look at training for 2022 for those of you that feel you've got some staff sitting in that quadrant to the right. Are people who perhaps sit back and are more quiet and maybe working more remotely and aren't getting noticed? Are their voices being heard? Have you got diversity of thought and opinion within your agency? Trust, really key. Are you trusted to get on and do a good job? And I thought this might shift as we all came back into the office, or there were variations, but it's holding pretty much steady at around 77%, not much change there. And it's interesting talking to Wally just before this call that you might not see big changes in the quant data, but interesting it's the comments that come through as we have external changes affecting us. Obviously the new variant could impact on how we work and how we trust one another in terms of our own health as we speak to each other in close proximity. So a good positive comment here: we're trusted to be accountable to ourselves and those we work with, which allows for a lot of autonomy and equally responsibility in the work we do. So these kind of comments you could weave into your recruitment materials, your new business outreach, talking to prospects, to describe the kind of people you've got working with you and their attitude to your agency. Because as we know in agency world, people buy people. So have you got people saying these green gold standard comments? Diversity and inclusion, my pet topic at the moment, pet subject. I'm doing a lot of work in this area with some fantastic consultants. So is your agency taking positive steps to improve diversity and inclusion? And of course, against the backdrop over the last couple of years, we've got the Me Too movement, we've got talent shortage from Brexit, we've got the pandemic perhaps showing up areas of disparity between those that have got good connection at home and those that haven't. So lots of key themes, and Ollie will be telling us more about those. But all of that relates back to who are you recruiting, who's the talent pool, we've got talent shortage, where are you going to go get an increased diversity of your team? It's really, really important. I learned the other day that for every white man that leaves a job, there's only 66% chance of filling like with like. So in other words, if you're only looking at white men coming into your agency, that pool is shrinking based on the diversity of the people we've got in the UK. Interesting food for thought there. Good. Next up, we've got learning and development, always key, and obviously Alliance are very big drivers in this, encouraging people to get courses and get people on courses, both on the job and external courses. Are you offered training and development to further yourself professionally? I'm disappointed to see this has gone down. Slipped back from 54% down to 42%. It may well be, I know there's been a lot of new business activity, training can slip off the back end if you're not careful. So a watch point there to make sure that continues to go up and nudge back up over 50% would be good. And often in agency, I do a lot of exit interviews, and those that leave, one of their reasons for leaving is they didn't feel they were given special attention and particular training, and they just stayed stale and static. So I think repackaging what people are learning on the job and explaining that that is actually training is a good thing to do first off, but also to really plan ahead, even in busy times, to make sure that your team feel they're being stretched and growing and learning new stuff. That's what keeps us coming back to work. Returning to the office, how satisfied are you with your agency's return? That's nudging in the right direction. We've gone up from 51 to 53. So clearly that's all around communications and people feeling trusted to do a good job, and that hybrid way of working being working for all. So gold standard comment here again, it's been made very flexible for those with children, other commitments, to make everything fit around that. There's no pressure to be in all the time, which I think is a really lovely statement, and that shows that the trust is being given. And you've got conversely nothing in concrete what people are requested to do. So again, that all comes down to communication. You might feel you've got a great policy in place, but does everyone understand it? Does everyone feel comfortable around it? Just check back in with your own teams after this. Cool. Leadership and comms has, how clearly has the leadership team communicated where the agency's going? Just wavering around there, about 43% saying really clearly, which I'm a bit surprised at. I think by now we've all pulled our socks up, and this really is an easy one to fix. It's about having one-to-one conversations, all team huddles, line management being absolutely trained on what the agency is up to and where it's going, because if you've got a clear roadmap, people can gather around and be aligned and help drive profit and sustainability of your office. So again, flipping those comments, you've got a regular communication at the top, and then you've got some disgruntled those saying there's a lot of talk about getting new starters and restructuring, but no plans being clearly outlined. Get your house in order. If you get people wrapped around it, you will succeed better. Sustainability, we've only asked this for the first time, really excited. I suggested we did this, and then we've put it in as a question, and it's thrown up a whole load of really interesting conversations, and we're going to spend a whole hour on sustainability at the Alliance call tomorrow. So any of those that want to join, you're welcome as a non-member. But we're looking at how you rate your agency's approach to sustainability in relation to climate change. And only 20% are saying that it's really good, and a lot sitting in that amber, 33% saying unsure. And again, that's around communication. It's about the will to do something and to make change. And tomorrow we'll be focusing on what baby steps you can make, even as an agency in this sector. So I think really interesting, and increasingly procurement is looking at your record as an agency in this space. So ESG, sustainability, really, really important. And then the mental health score, it's taken a dip, I'm afraid. So we were climbing steadily, minus 22 to minus 10, minus 10. This is on the NPS scale, of course, and it's dropped back down to minus 15. I'm sure not unrelated to uncertainty around, are we facing a winter of lockdowns and repeat patterns? Again, Ollie will have more on that, I'm sure, in his deep dives. But that is the 9 questions covered. Thank you very much. Back to Christine now, I believe.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. Gosh, that was well done. Lots of actually questions, I'm sure, on that data, which we'll come back to right at the end. Now I'm going to hand over to Christine on a very different topic, but I'm sure she'll make some brilliant connection between what we've just heard and what she's about to present.
No pressure. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you let me know if you can see that okay?
That's okay, yeah, just need to go full screen.
Sorry?
Just go full slide, perfect.
Can you guys see that okay?
We can, yeah, it's lovely.
Cool. So thanks very much for letting me come and speak on this talk today. And as Stephen mentioned, we're visual problem solvers, and we've got studios in Eton, Dundee, also got feet in the ground in San Francisco and Valencia, and we help our B2B clients convey complex messages using animation, static or animated images, to be fair, on any platform, and we use it in 2D, 3D, AR, VR, stop motion, motion graphics, you name it, even mixing it up with live film footage. So really, we're pretty passionate about what we do, and Sal, our mascot lizard, will be joining us today to enthusiastically help me with the presentation. So today I'll be talking about motion and emotion, and how to captivate an audience using visuals, slick animation, presentations, and emotion for any industry. And in B2B marketing and educational presentations, visuals and motion are the best tool in a marketing toolkit, particularly important in what's now a super virtual world. Where we'll be illustrating this by using an animated set of slides for this presentation. So we're bombarded more and more by all sorts of information vying for our attention, whether that be in LinkedIn, white papers, articles, TV, radio, ads, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. And the pandemic's actually heightened that, with every voice trying to be heard, whilst being sort of tethered more and more to our desks. And during the last 18 to 24 months, screen time, of course, has gone through the roof. And Facebook announced that since the crisis arrived in many countries most affected by the virus, total messaging has increased by more than 50%, and that's probably increased more so now, and with a 70% increase in time spent on social media. And again, I think that's probably increased to more than that. So last year, 86% of the UK-based marketeers delayed or reviewed their campaigns, leaving only 14% of marketing activations to continue ahead as planned. And it's these 14% of marketers who have really been proactive in their campaign and managed to adapt. And buyers continue to seek out and engage with businesses at record levels. So online shopping is growing so fast that the global online shopping market size nearly hit 4 trillion in 2020. And in the US alone, they're expecting 300 million online shoppers in 2023. That's 91% of the country's current population, which is absolutely crazy. So using this behavior and being proactive can really pay off. The last 24 months of online only contact is hard to shake, and people are now more and more internet savvy. This captive audience is more prepared to communicate, search, and buy online. And now more than ever, there's an opportunity to share your company or product story in a human and approachable way. So marketeers need to find new creative ways to enable them to pitch their ideas, engage with clients, and reach their audience in ways that fit in with the new normalized online behavior. And getting noticed and understood can be difficult in any industry. And this can be even more challenging with those more complex industries and products that are maybe seemingly less glossy with entertainment value, or such as, for example, legal or technical or sort of medical, even manufacturing. But that's because quite often companies in these industries tend to communicate by telling and not showing. And often there's not a sort of clear physical product to represent. So marketers can maybe shy away from using visual content. But visuals are actually key to almost any marketing strategy, because we retain our messages, our images in our long-term memory. So if you want your message or product or idea to be retained, what better way than by using visuals? So here are some of the marketing challenges we face. So the main challenge within marketing varies from industry to industry. For example, you might have limited marketing budgets in hospitality. You might have building brand trust issues in, say, financial services industry. But three of the biggest marketing challenges, particularly in this climate, can be tackled straight away. And they are, number one, cutting through the online noise and competition. Number two, lesser recognized but yet crucial, is attitudes towards your product and your target audience, specifically within B2B, and how to present these effectively. And number three, being proactive about generating quality leads. So to show the magnitude of the first two of these challenges, in 2019, there were 3.48 billion social media users. And with an audience this large, any marketeer would be crazy not to try and get their product out there. But with every marketeer doing the same thing, it's near impossible to stand out, let alone have your audience engage with you. So how do you begin? As always, we start with the target audience. And it's important to quash that common misconception that B2B marketing is all about marketing to businesses, because whether you're B2B or B2C, we're still marketing to people. So I really consider it more business is H2H, so it's human to human. What about the third challenge? So with everyone being online, buyer engagement reaches all-time highs, but sales results haven't quite come as close to seeing the corresponding increase, and suggesting that salespeople may be reaching out to poor fit prospects. So how do we make sure that we're generating the right quality leads? Well, the answer is, we feel very strongly, is using presentations, webinars, conference calls, and visual networking. And this is one issue though. There is one issue, because it means that you need to avoid the whole Zoom fatigue around that. And the science can help us to delve into why people get tired of the audio-visual comms, and how we can overcome this with the lack of engagement. Firstly, audio can be proposed as the main reason that video meetings are draining. And secondly, cognitive factors such as an increased ability to visually multitask threatens our attention capacity. And lastly, a rewards cost trade-off that happens in our minds unconsciously in the form of cognitive effort. So the problem that COVID has stirred isn't finding your audience so much, it's that when you've got their attention, it's hard to keep them engaged. However, if the communication is done right, the rewards are immense. Some of the best events that I've been to in years actually have been online the last few months. 73% of B2B marketing and sales leaders say that webinars are the best way to generate high quality leads. And for good reason, because the average webinar attendee session is nearly an hour, and no other content drives that kind of engagement. So make them look state of the art, smart and super professional, and avoid the old death by PowerPoint with a never ending tiny text. So obviously aim for your target audience and don't overlook your age demographic, with 73% of those involved in B2B research and decision making as millennials, and over a third identified as the sole decision makers. That's quite an important target audience. And it's important that we all know that to market effectively, we must also understand our buyer profile, and millennials have their preferences for absorbing information. So millennials spend an average of 7.2 hours online each day, and 2.4 of those hours are spent watching videos. The millennial generation of buyers expect the same kind of intimacy, immediacy, and coherency that their favorite B2C brands offer. Therefore, emotive marketing shouldn't be an afterthought, but seen as an essential to successfully resonate with this demographic particularly. So in this type of marketing, is it effective in any kind of industry, you might ask? Well, yes, we believe so. From seemingly dry industries such as banking to really whimsical ones like fashion, it can work in any of those. So how do emotive video marketing presentations solve marketing challenges? Well, we passionately believe that visual content, and particularly visual content in motion, is an engaging and productive form of marketing for all sectors, even those that consider themselves to be maybe difficult or even boring. 90% of information that is transmitted to the brain is visual, and we process that 60,000 times faster than text. And these actually stay in our long-term memory. So it's kind of a win-win-win situation. And knowing that 90% of B2B customers watch videos online shows the impact that motion marketing has on your target audience. But why does emotional content work so well? Well, it's all down to how we're actually hardwired. The brain can be thought of two systems. System one is focused on emotions and is concerned with our immediate satisfaction. And system two is more logical and deliberate. So an emotive video triggers immediate reaction from your system one, which affects behavior in viewers without them even knowing it. With so much content vying for our clicks, it makes sense to aim for system one part of the brain with the emotional content to help encourage audiences to take action. And logical content can be used to reinforce that decision in the system two part of the brain. And this can be especially useful for short-term sales uplift, but we need to lead with emotional content for long-term brand growth. So let's see this in action. I've got two case studies to show you. This first case study, it's the Wimbledon campaign celebrating 150 years of the All England Club. And it shows a roller coaster of history and action, uses lots of different animation styles, and ends up giving you goosebumps as well as clearly getting you to understand the whole sort of tradition and heritage behind it. So that gives you a good idea of how that can work. So the case study two is a powerful Danish child abuse awareness piece called Break the Silence. It's very strong. These animations take a completely different approach, but they're both extremely effective in eliciting that whole emotion intended for the audience. And it crosses time, taboo, sensitive subjects, and even language barriers, illustrating how animation can shift your mood and change your perception of a product or a subject. So as you see, that's quite emotive, and it really does set different scenes, so to speak. And it's something actually you couldn't really do in a film, to be honest. It wouldn't have the same impact. It would be a lot more, I don't know, different. But so the key advantages to animation, it's visual, but the movement is irresistible and draws the viewer in. It breaks down language barriers and can be created remotely, which is quite appropriate given our circumstances, which keep changing, and hugely advantageous for people who want to market internationally. It's editable and easily updated remotely without the need for a full film crew, which can potentially be more cost effective. It can create breathtaking scenes without a Hollywood budget. No need to fly around to exotic locations when these can be created at our animators' fingertips. It makes your brand memorable. Studies have shown that viewers retain 95% of a video's message compared to just 10% when reading the text. So it's a comparison of, imagine flying through the script of your favorite TV serial versus actually watching the episodes. It's extremely shareable on all businesses and social media, websites, email signatures, presentations, etc. And these are all pretty important at present to growing your brand awareness and messages. Consumers are increasingly cynical of advertising and marketing. Younger consumers, especially millennials again, choose brands from companies that they share the same values, and 91% of consumers are willing to reward a brand for authenticity. Brands will come out on top if they're transparent in their social media marketing strategies and in the content they produce. Social content such as influencer marketing, partnerships with advocacy, and cause marketing will be the content that actually matters more and more to these consumers and will make brands relevant to them. So the bottom line is authenticity always wins the day. You actually have 4 seconds to convert someone when they land on your website because they move on if they don't find what they want. But if you have an animation video, this increases it to 10 seconds, more than doubling your brand exposure and client stickiness potential. Including an animated video on your landing page can boost your conversion rate by up to 80%. And video increases organic search traffic on a website by 157%. If you use animation to explain the benefits of your product or service to the user, they're more likely to watch the entire video than read the exact same written version on your website, allowing your message to get across in an engaging way whilst the user learns more about your business. 64% of people are more likely to complete an action, whether that's to fill out a contact form or complete a purchase once they've watched a video. And not all products or services are created equal. And if you can use animation to showcase why yours is superior and unique and elicit an emotion response, then you'll be taking a big step towards differentiation, memorability, and brand awareness, and you will be ahead of the competition. So how does this apply to future marketing trends? So while there's still no business as usual, unfortunately, marketing is still staying the course in the shadow of COVID-19, and a service of ad agencies show that firms found both slowdowns and bright spots during our lockdown periods, but mostly lots of question marks as the situation continues to evolve in the UK and globally. History shows that in any economic downturn, one of the first expenses cut is advertising and marketing. In the aftermath of the 2008 recession, advertising media spending dropped by 13%, and that was due to a financial issue. And now we're dealing with an ongoing global pandemic, which of course has a similar but yet more extreme effect on marketing. A survey carried out during COVID showed that 69% of brands initially decreased their spending. And for the 31% who chose to continue the advertising, the shift from in-person to digital was not only happening in office work groups, but also for advertising, conferences, networking, events, commerce strategies, etc. And this is why any collateral and presentation made for your brand needs to stand out and resonate. For example, immersive virtual conferences that are built digitally, including virtual auditoriums, for example, are designed to make you feel that you're physically present and ensure that planned events can still go ahead only digitally. And this next rather epic reel shows how we've recreated what was originally built for, real bricks and mortar stage conferences into digital events and presentations. Anyway, you get the gist, it's quite long, this one. So at Salamander UK, we've experienced a spike in clients looking to create new digital collateral and hybrid events. And next you'll see an example of how we recently used green screens and some digital trickery to create a virtual stage and 3D elements that pop out, including using AR and VR, all whilst hosting a Zoom talk.
Love that. Christine,
So yes?
I love that. That's wonderful.
So do scan the image on your phone, and you should be able to see an interactive 3D animation on that one. So how will this affect marketing going forwards? The need is real to increase digital marketing and be prepared for the current trend of online presentations and webinars, which are here to stay. We feel that delegates and companies will be more reticent to pay and take long-haul flights to attend overseas conferences during this pandemic and beyond. Companies have adjusted to virtual events, and consumers have adjusted to digitizing their behavior. Even older consumer demographics who may have been previously uncomfortable buying groceries, for example, or other goods online, have digitized their behavior, with COVID making them get comfortable with that. And experts predict that now they're used to the convenience, such shoppers will be hard pressed to go back to bricks and mortar shopping. And unbelievably, nearly 40% of current online grocery shoppers made their very first online grocery purchase in March 2020. So shows how quickly things change. But what can we take away from this? Not only are businesses likely to continue the virtual meetings and presentation trend in order to save money, but that we can also take a step back and realize how this has created a change in the way that we communicate to our target audience. We've all heard of the cliche, content is king. Well, it seems that COVID has placed a serious yet welcome addition to this. Not only do we need to make sure that our content is the best and most engaging out there, but we also need to place context at the heart of what we're associating our brand with. In the last 18, 24 months, marketers have had to tread a thin line between selling and helping. In other words, no matter how fantastic your content is, context can render the hard sell extremely inappropriate and insensitive, which can affect your customers' emotions, and these in turn affect the different parts of their brain and, of course, their actions. So if we keep in mind the two C's, content and context, rather than just the first, and use visuals, particularly moving ones, we should be able to deliver marketing strategies that are exactly what the consumer has evolved to want: honest, memorable, and authentic. So thanks very much for listening.
Oh, hang on, there you go again. So yeah, I think really powerful stuff, and I think really interesting and creative and insightful way of using animation. Lots of questions coming in already, which we'll come back to if I may. We're going to skip, if I may, straight into Oliver's presentation, and then come back and we'll do all the questions in one go, if that's okay.
Great stuff.
Thank you very much, Christine.
Pleasure.
Okay, I'm just going to upload my slides. Bear with me a moment.
Fine collection of wine you got going there. Well, I thought you'd been.
I was going to say the same thing. It looks great.
I'm trying to find my. Okay, it's not showing me. Can't seem to find this file to share. Yes, the wine. It used to be a exercise bike, and I changed it.
That's my kind of exercise.
No. Okay, this is. Oh, there we go. Right. Scroll down. Sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully, you can see that on your screens.
Yeah, if you could just go to the slideshow and see the whole thing, that'd be great.
There we go, great. So thanks for having me back again. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of some of our recent polling amongst businesses and the general public. I should caveat all of this with the fact that all of this polling was done before the weekend's announcements about the new Omicron variant. And I think it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens next. But it does show, what I'm going to show in a minute, it does show kind of how people's views and so forth have been changing over the past year or so. But please bear in mind, yeah, this is before the current situation. So I'm going to start off with some of our latest business tracking, and it does touch on some of the stuff which other presenters have touched on, sort of working environments and remote working and all that kind of stuff. So this is interesting, and this is one which may well be different now if we had more up-to-date data, but our business survey tracks every month. And what we've seen going back over the last year or so, this is a 12-month trend, is that the impacts from COVID are declining a little, and particularly over the last sort of month or so, from September to October, we saw medium and large businesses saying that the negative impact of business was falling. But you've still got around overall 2/3 of businesses who are saying that so far COVID has had a negative impact on my business in some way. So it's declining, but still very much there. And of course, it's not just COVID which has impacted on people, on businesses recently. There is also the other big thing of Brexit. And here we see a slightly different pattern. So the proportion of businesses who've said that Brexit has had a negative impact on them is smaller. So we're looking at about 4 in 10 as opposed to 2/3, but it's on the rise, and particularly amongst smaller businesses who have maybe found it harder to deal with new red tape, bureaucracy, and don't have the resources to adapt, maybe supply chain issues, who knows. Whereas amongst the medium and large businesses, the darker line, it stayed fairly consistent. So COVID's still very much a challenge, was dropping. Brexit, slightly less of a challenge, but increasing. And what does that mean in terms of a negative impact of Brexit? Well, it's about the bottom line, and it is increasingly hurting the bottom line, again, particularly amongst small businesses, the lighter blue line there, where we see now about 1/3 of them saying that their bottom line has been hit by Brexit. And although the trend is more consistent amongst medium and large businesses, you've got around 45% of those who have said that they have also had their bottom line hit, and that's defined as a decline in income, turnover, or sales. That's not moving on. Right. And along with all of that, what we have seen is that a slight decline in the government's handling of Brexit. So only around half of businesses say they're confident in the government's strategy for managing our future relationship with Europe, and that is declining, particularly over the last 6 months amongst both small businesses and medium and large businesses. And that may be as businesses have kind of seen and felt more of the effects of the reality of operating outside Europe and some of the supply chain issues we've seen over the last few months. So COVID-19 was easing, and Brexit is still very much a growing concern. But what that means is that overall confidence is flat amongst businesses. So we've asked businesses over this period, kind of, how confident are you that you'll still be operating in the next 12 months? And it stayed remarkably consistent. I presented this before. Around 3/4 of businesses saying that they are confident that they will still be operating in a year's time. But that does still leave 1/4 who say they aren't confident, which, as I've said before, is actually a huge proportion of businesses and employees who maybe their livelihoods are at risk. So that's kind of the situation in terms of overall sentiment and concern amongst businesses. They're also, I think, grappling with what the new normal of work looks like. And this does relate to some of the earlier presentations that we saw. So overall, I think businesses have seen that remote working does work. So around 2/3 of both small and medium and large businesses have felt that they can effectively function using video conferencing and other technology and less reliant on face-to-face meetings. So they've seen it work, and the evidence is there, and from the situation forced on them by COVID, fairly consistent across sectors as well, which is interesting. But there is, there's a few things here we're just going to go through in terms of kind of what the new normal might encompass. And there does seem to be as well significant doubt around whether travel will sort of return to pre-pandemic levels. So only around half of businesses feel that domestic business travel will return to levels seen prior to the pandemic, and similarly with international business travel as well. So it feels like people are adapting to this new normal of remote working, and it's likely to be here to stay for many businesses. Another thing which has hit businesses as well is following the struggles of last year, maybe to survive and going through periods of furlough and redundancy for a lot of businesses. What's happening now is we're seeing that it really is an employees market when it comes to vacancies and filling vacancies, and businesses are struggling to fill those. And we are indeed at Savanta, as well, as we've grown this year, trying to fill vacancies, and there's a lot of candidates out there, and they've got a lot of choice. And we see that across particularly medium and large businesses, 3/4 saying they're struggling to fill all or most of the vacancies that they have, and still a majority of small businesses saying that as well. It does differ by sector and also job roles. So you see there IT, tech and comms being particularly struggling in terms of filling vacancies. And we've seen generally with some of our other surveys, such as for the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry, it is those roles in tech and IT and comms that are really, really hard to fill. So what are businesses doing to try and overcome that? How can they attract employees to work for them? They're trying to think of new ways of how they can attract them. So again, majorities of businesses are offering new things, new benefits. We've called them perks here, but are they really perks, or are they just part of the new normal? So businesses very much emphasising that there is flexible working available, working from home, working remotely. Those sorts of things are needed, I think, now to attract the most talented people into businesses. And I think it's a win-win situation. So it works for employees a lot of the time, although some sort of hybrid working, I think, is often seen as the way forward. But employers also see, they feel anyway, benefits from providing the flexibility. And one big thing that seems to be really coming out is they recognise they need to do this to attract a wider talent pool. So we've seen kind of how businesses have adapted, and the intention very much are that these remote and flexible approaches are here to stay. Both small and medium businesses, 9 in 10 of those saying that in the future they will continue to offer at least partially or if not completely a working from home or flexible working environment. So this new normal is indeed that. However, the intention is there, but there are struggles to get there. So nearly half of businesses say they don't have the solutions in place in terms of largely technology to enable this kind of hybrid working to work fully in practice. So there's a bit of catch up to do. And then we see COVID, Brexit, and COVID more so than we thought maybe a week ago here to stay. And businesses across both sides is very much recognising that those two things will contribute to a challenging business environment going forward as well. They're challenges which businesses are going to have to continue to adapt to and overcome. They're not going away anytime soon. And what this means is businesses want support from government. So nearly 2/3 of businesses of both sizes want more support from the government when it comes to Brexit, suggesting that there's not enough support there at the moment. And if it doesn't come from government, businesses are very happy to go and try and seek it elsewhere. So whether that's through agencies or think tanks or other relevant businesses, I think there is a demand for more support on how to deal with the challenge, and particularly of Brexit. So that's the sort of situation and how things stand with the business population at the moment. For the last few minutes, I'm just going to look at how the public are feeling, and as well as COVID and Brexit as the two big issues, we've obviously seen quite a lot of other things troubling the government recently, including second jobs and that kind of stuff. And it's certainly not easy going for Boris Johnson and the government at the moment. And we see this reflected in our public opinion polling. This shows net favourability in Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak and the UK government over time, going back to May 2020. A few things here which really stand out. So Boris Johnson's net approval rating is negative, so that means more people are unfavourable and favourable towards him. He's the blue line. It did dip going through last winter. It rose again in the spring as we came out of COVID last time round, but it's been consistently declining since May, and it's now at its lowest level ever. So not looking too good. The pattern for favourability rating for UK government, as you might expect, very much follows that for Boris Johnson. Rishi Sunak is the only cabinet minister who seems to be coming out of things so far with more people being favourable than unfavourable towards him. The rating is declining. We see that generally with politicians over time, but the fact he's still in positive territory, I think, is a good sign for him. Keir Starmer, on the other hand, at points last year was sort of above Boris Johnson in terms of favourability, then dipped in spring this year, and he's also in negative territory. So despite the troubles that Boris Johnson and the government are having, Keir Starmer and the Labour Party maybe not capitalising on that, and maybe people just aren't seeing enough from Keir Starmer in terms of what he might offer as an alternative, and we'll see that a bit more in a minute. However, Labour do lead in the polls, although this was a week ago, and one release this morning shows that it's now neck and neck. We did have one a couple of weeks ago which showed Labour with a 6-point lead, and that was directly after all of the Geoffrey Cox scandal of his working in nice sunny places. So Boris Johnson's ratings are falling. Labour are kind of slightly overtaken, maybe, or certainly in line with Tories in the polls, which maybe suggests people are open to an alternative. However, they're still unsure about the leader of the Labour Party and whether he is a viable alternative. When we ask directly which of the following politicians do you think would make the best Prime Minister, Boris Johnson still consistently comes out far ahead of Keir Starmer. There is just not enough evidence in the minds of the public to persuade them that Keir Starmer could do a better job. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. So it's the last, actually nearly the last time I'm going to say. So I wanted to try and find some of the more recent stuff on COVID and how people feel about it. This was based on fieldwork from a couple of weeks ago, so before the Omicron announcement. But we do see that there is, I suppose, good news for the government in their recent announcements about ramping up the booster programme. 3 times as many people would support than oppose a shorter time between the second COVID vaccine and the booster. That's pretty consistent across Conservative and Labour voters. The pattern does change, and there's more support for this amongst those who've had more vaccines, which maybe is not surprising. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just talk through some of the recent findings we had. I'll take probably 1 more minute to do that. They were literally out yesterday afternoon, so they're not charted up yet. But these are the only findings we've got which maybe give some indication of the public's mood, given the latest variant announcements over the weekend. So this fieldwork ran over the weekend, meaning most people who answered the survey will have at least been aware of the news. So the proportion of people who now say the worst is ahead of us with the pandemic has doubled in the last 8 weeks, from 19% to 37%. Having said that, the public is still very split, and 40% do think the worst is behind us. But the mood seems to be shifting. The proportion who's saying the worst is ahead of us has doubled in the last 8 weeks. Concern over another wave has also risen to 80%. So people are worried about this new wave, even though they don't know exactly what the implications are for it. And encouragingly for the government, I think there is still majority support for mandatory face coverings on public transport and inside shops. And we've seen that throughout the pandemic from the very outset in March last year. There has been very strong support from the public for restrictions, for measures that the government might take to try and suppress the spread of the disease. So with those new announcements, I think the public will be very accepting of them on the whole. There'll always be a minority who aren't, but the vast majority will. And I think what will likely happen if there are further restrictions, the public will also be on the whole supportive of those as well. that was all I was going to talk about. I think next time I come back, we may see some more interesting trends depending on what happens over the next couple of months and as we move through winter. But that's the situation at the moment. I'm very happy to take any questions on any of that as well.
Thank you very much, Ollie. As always, up to the moment, very interesting there. Lots of questions coming in. I'm going to add our speakers, all of them to the spotlight, and then we can take questions. I'm going to start with a question, if I may, that came in a little earlier. Well, I should go reverse order. One from Stephen James to everyone. Is there any indications that brands or brands with particular characteristics are going to spend their way through upcoming issues?
I don't think we've got anything particularly on that, to be honest. I think organizations in certain sectors, I think we see different patterns coming there through in some of the data in terms of their concern from particularly the likes of Brexit. So what we see is, for example, on the proportion of businesses who are saying that the pandemic is hurting their income, that is the two sectors which are most impacted there from our survey are the IT, tech and comms sector and retail and wholesale. What they're going to do in response to that, I'm not too sure. The other thing is that, what's interesting for me is that there's a greater proportion of medium and large businesses who are reporting falling incomes due to Brexit, but that's staying fairly constant, whereas the proportion of small businesses who are saying that is a bit lower, but it's rising, and they're going to have less resource to be able to sort of spend their way out of this kind of stuff. So I think it might be more to do with kind of business size than particular brands or sectors in terms of their approach to this. Obviously, medium and large businesses have got more resources to be able to do that compared with small businesses. I'm sure there will, of course, be brands out there who have got the resources who can literally spend their way out of it, but they're probably sort of isolated in individual circumstances rather than sort of a general pattern across types of brand, I would say.
Thank you. A question here for Hannibal. You spoke about the fact that obviously there's a danger with people returning to the office now. We're seeing actually kind of almost falling confidence there, and the importance actually for people to be direct about what their policies are around hybrid working. Are you seeing much evidence that agencies aren't communicating correctly how they want their employees to respond and work? You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, it's quite a mixed bag. It's a bit of a self-selecting pool. Those agencies we actually work with tend to be those that want to invest in people and want to get it right. So they very quickly get their comms in shape. But doing the people pulse, of course, we're going out to agencies that we've got no prior relationship with. And so some of the negative comments that do come in are slightly jarring. And it surprises me because these agencies are in the business of communication and promotion. So I scratch my head sometimes. Why is that not clearly communicated? And we know communication, it takes two to communicate. Yes, to broadcast the message, but you have to then check, has that landed and what's their understanding of it? But we're 6-7 months after lockdowns now, that this really needs to be really understood by teams. And if we're still getting negative comments like that, then there is work to do. So long rambling answer, but yes, there are patches of poor communication in our sector.
Thank you. A question for Christine. This one's from Jack Williams at Atomic. He said, when we do online meetings, we often struggle to get an advert to play whilst in presentation mode. How is it that you have such beautiful animation? It looks so slick and so smooth. What's your technology? What's your secret?
It's not a huge secret. It's done as an MP4, and you just add it to your background. So also, Stephen, I had a few sort of questions sent privately. So can I make a shameless plug for my book? Because we wrote this. It's called Destination Animation, How Smart Marketeers Convey Their Complex Messages Memorably. And it's really to help people understand how the animation process works. It should, it's for any marketeer, business owner, you know, agency looking into it, whatever. It gives you the whole hows and wherefores and whatnot, and the different styles, etc. Because often we get asked things like, you know, well, how much would this cost? Well, you know, how long's a piece of string? Because it's you know, it's so varied, and it's all down to complexity and how much you know, work and thinking goes into it, etc. So hopefully that's useful. It's available on Amazon and Kindle if anybody's interested.
Okay, and the ideal Christmas gift for any marketeer, I would suggest.
Yeah, we actually got to #1 on Amazon Kindle, which is quite nice. We pipped a book on a Pixar to the post, which we're delighted with. They are icons, and to pip them to the post, it's quite cool. So
Well done, your book. I've not had a chance to read it myself yet, but it's on my list. Ollie, we've increasing the pulse rate frequency from here on, given obviously the rise of the Omicron and the fact that it's obviously spreading confusion across both the population.
I think the business tracker will stay at monthly. What I suspect we'll be doing with the general public is tracking a few more things on a weekly basis, and we'll probably supplement that with some sort of ad hoc polls, snap polls through the weeks as well, just, you know, to really respond to any particular changes that happen. So if, for example, in a couple of weeks' time, then, you know, if we see that, you know, suddenly cases are going up, deaths are going up, hospitalizations going up, more restrictions come in place, we'll do more snap polling around that to see what people's opinions of that are.
I think what's quite interesting from the outtake of the conversation today for me is that, you know, with Omicron and with this situation at the moment, it just seems that we are seasonally living with something that's not going to go away for some period of time here, and almost this kind of seasonal adjustment coupled with the shorter days will create a number of impacts, both in terms of confidence, certain attitudes, mental health, and so on. And I guess it's more about us all coming to terms with the fact that this is the way life is going to be for the foreseeable future, God forbid. And this is year 3, isn't it? And most of us are having relatives who were planning to come and see us this Christmas now cancelled, they're coming from abroad. It's all a bit of a shame. But it is a reality. And I guess as we look into the new year, with the possibility of increases in interest rates and so on, we've got to continue to persuade our clients to carry on investing in their brands and to keep the economy going. Because positively, I'm sure I wouldn't have thought at this stage that we would have such a significant surge in business performance and growth, nor have 1.3 million jobs available at the moment, nor expect that, you know, businesses would be performing and generally speaking delivering good dividends. So I think things are a lot better than we had hoped for, but there's still further challenges, appears to be kind of the output from the day. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, in particular Annabelle, Christine and Oliver, but also for you for attending and asking some insightful and useful questions. I just wanted to flag that obviously we've got a couple of events coming up in the next couple of weeks. The first of which I wanted to bring to your attention is next Wednesday. We have the BD Club led by Paddy. That particular session will be focusing on really looking back at 2021, but also forward to 2022. And we're going to have the team from the AAR with us to tell us how independent agencies are faring. Most of you would have read in the last few weeks that actually India's having a pretty good time of it, winning global accounts from large multinationals. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some interesting insights, be able to share that. That's next Wednesday, same time, same place. So enjoy the rest of the week. The sun is now shining. There's lots to be positive about, and thank you for joining us all.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.